Hi, AJ Hartley here, novelist, Shakespeare professor, fan of various aspects of Japanese music and culture, including dance vocal band Atarashi Gakko. Now, there's a song that came out a couple of months ago, and initially I wasn't going to talk about it because it was a remake of somebody else's song on which they have been featured in a new mix. But, you know, the more I listen to the song, the more I love it, so I wanted to say something about it. And because I think there's some interesting differences between the original version and the current version. The song is by Norwegian singer-songwriter Aurora. It came out last year in 2024 in the summer. But she has just done this remix. It's more than a remix, actually, a rewriting of the song. It's called Some Type of Skin. And this version includes Atarashi Gakko. And it's quite a significant departure from the original, and I think it's really great. So let's check it out, and I want to unpack the lyrics and see what's going on here, because I think it's cool.
Hit me hard where I am soft. Should my heart reveal itself to be more than a muscle or a fist covered in blood?
So we have a visualizer here. We don't have a complete video. I don't know if they weren't in the same place or what, but the visualizer is a very simplified rendition of a couple of iconic images from the original song video, in which Aurora is dancing amongst a series of black-clad mannequins, sort of bouncing off them, interacting with them. And we see this repeated image of her sort of pallor and this sort of black-gloved hands. And I think part of the point of that image is that we get a sense of her body being sort of open and vulnerable, and the others being somehow encased, protected. In other words, they have a kind of skin. And that's the contrast. This is a song about wanting to be in some ways tougher, in wanting to be better protected against the world and against the problems and such, and dealing with relationships in particular. But I think maybe it's a little bit larger than that. And if you know the original song, the first thing that strikes you about this version is that it's very slightly faster. The original, which is very Aurora, has that ethereal vocal and sort of melodic, sweeping, gradually building, synthesized background, which is quite beautiful. And one of the things I think that characterizes Aurora is that she has this sort of combination of, vocally and physically, I would say, she has a combination of fragility and strength, paradoxically, which comes from her candor, from her honesty, right? There's something very raw about the emotional level of the way she performs and the things that she's singing about. And that makes her feel both vulnerable and strong, right? And it's reminiscent of a tradition of female singer-songwriters that I think includes people as diverse as, you know, Kate Bush or Bjork. I get a lot of Bjork from her. Or even somebody, you know, Florence and the Machine, you know, this kind of very honest, intense, emotional stuff. In the course of the video, so we focus on the hands and the face, and then we see this image of the heart, which is in this in this representation sort of gray and lifeless. But the imagery of the song suggests something stronger and tougher. Hit me hard where I am soft. Should my heart reveal itself to be more than a muscle or a fist covered in blood? Great images, you know? It's about vulnerability, about being somehow open so that everything that you feel is painful. The fist covered in blood, you know, I mean, the heart is more than a muscle. It's a sort of metaphor for the feeling self. And the fist covered in blood suggests in a constant state of combat. And of course, the blood is not simply your own. The blood is other people's, right? Because when we're vulnerable, we lash out at other people. And so the sense of being in relationships that can be a battleground. But as I say, it feels a little bit quicker, a little bit more edgy than the original song, which is very reflective and melancholic. There's a slightly different kind of energy to this, a different kind of friction to it, which I think is interesting.
However much it feels to bleed, it's only temporary. We're good people and we both deserve peace. My God, it's a love. Like wolfskin, my God, it's a love.
However much it feels to bleed, it's only temporary. So there's a moment of optimism where the pain is something that goes away. And then we shift. We're good people. God. It's a beautiful song. We're good people and we both deserve peace. So the sense of conflict, we're better than this. We should be able to transcend it. And then we switch up into this higher emotional register. My God, it's a lot. This, as I say, this song I think is framed as a relationship song, certainly in the original, but I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to in more general terms, especially at the moment where just getting through the day is hard, right? Especially if you are a feeling, thinking person. It's a lot and it's exhausting, right? And this is a song about wanting to be more resilient, right? Without losing our sensitivity, without losing our ability to connect, to empathize, to reach other people, to be in touch with our own feelings. What we want is to keep all that, but somehow be able to survive a little bit easier. I've got to build some type of skin. We're familiar with the phrase being thick-skinned or thin-skinned, right? Being able to sort of take what Hamlet calls the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, to suffer them, to put up with them, to get through them, as opposed to just sort of quitting entirely. And I think one of the reasons this song particularly appeals to me is that whatever the immediate context of the song, this also feels very much like the song of an artist. The job of an artist is to be vulnerable, to be open to their own feelings and those of other people so that they can represent them in their art and present something which is true. But this is an extremely painful process, right? Because you have to feel things and acknowledge that feeling. A lot of people are able to sort of suppress that in order to keep going. I think it's harder for writers and musicians and so on, you know? So this is where we get the Atarashi Gakko first contribution. They're doing that backing vocal. Got to build some type of skin, and that sort of choric sense immediately lifts the song. The structure of the thing is really cool, right? That first verse, which is sort of thoughtful, it raises the premises and things, and then it steps it up, both with the we're good people and we both deserve peace, and then the acceleration of my God, it's a lot, and then the projected solution. I've got to somehow find a way to be tougher, more resilient. I just want to show you this bit from the original video where we see this moment where the sort of panic and anxiety hits her in the video. And it's one of the things I miss in this visualizer.
We're good people and we both deserve peace. My God, it's a love and some type of skin.
But then in the original song, we get a verse that doesn't appear in the Atarashi Gakko version. It says, I guess I should build some type of skin and let breath be air and love the things I know might disappear. And the last light of the sun, I let it slow me down. I'll crawl where everybody runs. We're good people and we deserve peace. It's difficult, it seems. So she's processing the thought and she's like, okay, so the solution perhaps is to feel more, to process the things that everybody else runs through. And so I'm gonna crawl. I'm gonna celebrate the being in the sun, even if the light of the sun is going away. And that thought at the end, we deserve peace. It's difficult, it seems, right? So it's hard to get this stuff. Now, what I think is really interesting is that in the new version, we get a completely different verse sung by Suzuka in Japanese.
風に吹かれ届かない声戸惑い悩みまだ見つからない探し物閉じかけた窓をもう一度開けて見えない明日に手を伸ばす
So the visualizer gives us the hands of the Atarashi Gakko ladies in their distinctive uniforms. And we see immediately that they're sort of shading the heart, protecting it, supporting it, which I think is appropriate for what their part in the song is doing. And we get this first Japanese verse, Kaze ni fukare torokanai koe. So my voice can't be heard because it's blown away by the wind. Tomadoi nayami mara mitsukaranai sagashimono. So I'm confused, troubled. I'm looking for something that I can't find. There's no pronouns here, so it's sort of generalized. We're not entirely sure whether it's just me or us, insofar as we're part of this relationship. Tojikaketa mado, or moichido akete. Open the window which is closed one more time. Mienai asa nite or nobasu, where I'm reaching for a tomorrow that I can't see. So what we get in this first part of the verse is more of that sort of confusion, that wounded, lost powerlessness, this sense of stumbling around looking for something that you can't find. It's a very Atarashi Gakko sentiment. They've been doing this for 3 albums plus. That sense of looking for things and wandering around, kind of being lost.
私たちは今日も歌っていく難しいとしても My God is alive.
Then the rest of the voices come in. Watashi tachi wa kyo, today we mo utate iku, we will sing for another day. Muzukashi to shitemo, even if it's difficult. So I think this is an interesting revision of the original verse, right? We're good people, we deserve peace. It's difficult, it seems. It's hard to find that. That's a statement of the nature of things. The Atarashi Gakko verse transforms that into a statement of purpose. We're reaching for the invisible tomorrow, but today, we can't see what is happening or what's coming, but we will sing for another day, even if that is difficult. It's a statement of determination, of strength. Then we come back to that chorus, my God, it's a lot. And the tempo of the song steps up and we get the beginning of a kind of drum line in the background as the energy starts to raise. And we start to shift from a kind of reflective, melancholy, internal musing into an anthem of determination and strength, which is more akin to sort of traditional Atarashi Gakko material, at least traditional in terms of their more recent work over the last couple of years. But I love the fact that we're moving from a place of thoughtfulness and reflectiveness, which is akin to material on the first two albums, you know? I had started to think, and Money Mark said this when I interviewed him, that it was hard to imagine an Atarashi Gakko ballad. Now, they used to do those ballads, but of course they're not really part of the tonality of what they've been doing recently, and it's hard to imagine them performing them live on stage. And this is not a ballad, but it begins in that place and then grows out of it and becomes something strong and energetic and powerful, while still having that anguish simultaneous. I think that's the thing, right? That as we get that drum line and we still hear that, my God, it's a lot over the top, along with that, I've got to build some type of skin. And those two things going on simultaneously. So we have both the problem and the solution, right? Even if the solution is something that we have to aspire to. I think this is a really great balance. I love it.
なぜ私たちはなぜ傷ついて心のささくれ知らんふりしてここまで来た日々でも今日からは前向かって前向かって
And the anguish transitions into the Japanese part. Naze watashi tachi wa? Why us? And this, I suppose, could mean, why are we here? Why do we exist? Or simply, why is it us who have to go through this? Naze kizutsuite? Why do we get hurt? Kokoro no sasakure, the wounds in our hearts, our broken hearts. Shiran furishite, pretending not to know, and then kokomare kita hibi. These days have brought us to this point. Now, I think that you can read this in a couple of ways. Either the wounds pretend not to know that our days have brought us here. The wounds in our hearts pretend not to know that our days have brought us here. So there's a sense of responsibility there. This is kind of our fault. Or two separate thoughts. We pretend not to notice our broken hearts. And then, new thought, our past has brought us to this point. And in some ways, I think that's better. We battle on, we pretend not to notice our broken hearts. But we have to acknowledge also that everything we have done, everything we have experienced has brought us to this point. And then, demo, kyo kara wa maimukate, repeated, maimukate. But from today onwards, we will move forwards. We're going to go ahead. So again, there's that sense of, out of the anguish comes resolution. Out of the pain and the despair and the sadness comes the drive. And you feel the intensity, the emotional level of the song raise as we do this. I think it's really well executed. When you know what it's saying, I think it's quite powerful. And we then sort of upscale the whole thing. I love the way we separate out the my God and it's a lot. We divide it between the voices and we lift the whole thing up, right? So again, the sense of forward movement, the sense of having a plan to go forward doesn't take away from the pain and the anguish and the difficulty of the thing. And you can hear that. And that drum line really comes up and starts to create that sense of a march. It's reminiscent of, think of Atarashi Gakko doing something like Tokyo Calling at Coachella with the marching band, and that sense of we're pulling together, right? And as the hands join, and that sense of as a whole, in recognizing the difficulty of life, forget the relationship stuff in a sense, because it's bigger than that. That's the way I'm reading it anyway. That we're recognizing this kind of universal human condition to live in pain and stress and distress, and to turn that into the energy that keeps you moving forward. It's, again, a very familiar Japanese sentiment. You've heard me talking about it in a lot of different songs by a lot of different bands. The sort of resilience of the human spirit in the face of constant, crushing opposition. So good. Yeah, that is so good. Oh man, I love the way that you can still feel the anguish of the original, even as you have this sort of positive forward movement and determination, which comes from the Atarashi Gakko revision. And it's such a good balance, you know. Great song. This has really grown on me. I like it a lot. I love the way that the song doesn't deny the intensity of pain or the reality of pain, even as it tries to move beyond it. And the two things go hand in hand. I think it's really, really cool. And I think that this is a great kind of collaboration for Atarashi Gakko. We've seen a number of them since their last album came out. And each one has been different. You think of things like the collab with Sheena Ringo, which had that very sort of jazz, funky drive to it. Shimmy, which they did with Maximum the Hormone, which was one of my favorite songs of last year because of its blending of that real sort of hard metal sound along with the kind of vocal quality that they brought to it. And it's such a great mix. Now, but of course, that was a pre-existing song like this one. And I love the way that this is a further collaboration which pushes their musical reach even wider, that the tonality is different. And I love the fact that they are in some ways coming back to some of the stuff that made those first two albums work, the sort of reflective sensitivity to it, and incorporating that into their new sense of power and resilience and dynamism. I think it's great. But I also think that's all I have to say. It's and I think, no, apparently not. I think sometimes it's the simplicity of a song that makes it work. And this is in some ways quite simple, but the structuring of it, I think, is really well executed, and it's all about melody. There's a lot of Japanese stuff that I really love, and then sometimes I encounter other stuff which I don't connect to, and invariably the stuff that I don't connect to doesn't have this sense of melody. And when you listen to a song like this and you let it speak to you sonically, not just intellectually, you feel the sort of emotional wave of the thing because it's being carried by the tune. These are the building blocks of song or music, lyric, right? That's it. Words and melody, that's all there is. Everything else is dressing. And the bones of this song, I think, are really good. And I think it complements their voices really well and the different elements that they bring to it. I have read nothing about the song, about how it came to be or what they were going for. And in some ways, I don't care. I'm not particularly interested in authorial intent. I'm interested in the way that we respond to it in a thoughtful way that processes what we actually are given by the artist and are allowed to then turn it on into our own emotional response. So yeah, great song. And that's all. As ever, please like, comment, Subscribe. Feel free to share your thoughts on the song in the comments below. Check out my Patreon page. I always include a link to my Patreon page in the description for the video, and a special thanks to all my patrons without whom this channel would not be possible. Check out my books. I will have more news on developments, both with stuff that I'm doing with Tom DeLonge of Blink-182, and my own Hideki Smith series later this year. Check out my little Dashery store for shirts and such, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks very much. Bye.